Hello, everybody. It is Ebony Combs here. How are you doing? Excited to be here with you today. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for trusting your platform to me to train today on branding, social media, and just the presence of branding. I like to call this making your brand, creating a brand from scratch, the basics of branding. So I'll let you all gather in the room. I like starting on time, so I was on right at 6 o'clock. So it's time for us to go ahead and continue with what we're doing. I want to say how proud of you all that I am. I'm excited that you all are starting this entrepreneurial journey so far in advance, so far ahead of what so many adults are unable to do. Parents, if you're watching out there, thank you for supporting your kid dreams, the kidpreneurs, and the endeavors that they like to achieve in life. Before we get started, I just want to kind of go over what you're going to learn in this training, and that is the 4 simple steps, what I call the CCCI method. That's CCCI, and also creating intentional clarity in your brand's personality and overall experience, the user experience of your audience, whether that's on a product or a service, just what that looks like for those who are being your consumer. They're acting as your consumer. They're buying from you. You want buying power. You want an audience who is not ashamed to buy from you, one that is proud of that, and they're supported because they understand that they're getting a quality product, right? So that's some of the things we're going to teach you in this training as well. So just the 4 steps of what I do. Hi, Zandra. I see you on. Thank you for joining. We're going to talk about those 4 steps. We're going to go over being intentionally clarifying things with intention. And we're going to have an opportunity for you all to ask me live questions after the training, after I've done and facilitated the workshop altogether. We'll have a replay of this posted in your event group as well as your Facebook group as well with your anthology that you're doing. So I want you to be aware if you're not on live, then it's fine. We'll watch it over again and you can ask me questions. I'll make myself available and kind of peek into the group to see what you all are up to and if you have any additional questions outside of what we've already discussed today, okay? So I want to tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Ebony Combs. I am a brand and social media strategist consultant. I'm a speaker and author, a 2-time best-selling author, and I plan to write several more books. My next project is for speakers and event organizers and what that looks like. So that's what we're working on next. But I also serve as a beauty and lifestyle consultant, and what that is how I got started there with my brand. Actually, that's what propelled me to doing what I do today, and that was with My Black is Beautiful, which is a Procter & Gamble initiative. I've served as a hair model for Pantene Naturals. I've represented the My Black is Beautiful campaign, which speaks to Black women and girls, and we talk about their beauty from the inside out. So had the privilege of becoming a national ambassador and serving with Procter & Gamble's My Black is Beautiful for 2 years. And it's a great exhilarating experience for me. And it just kind of moved me into other areas of my business. And if you see me looking off screen, I am looking for comments. Please make sure that while you're watching this broadcast, if you have any questions, please let me know. That way I can go ahead and just give you some insight on and answer your question live while we're here. So please post those and I'll look in the live feed here onto the side. And if you have questions that you say, hey, Ebony, I'd like to ask you live instead of typing it in the comments, then let me know and I'll definitely invite you over to the broadcast so we can be on screen together. So a little bit about outside of the ambassador role and me starting my own company, because I have not always done this formally. I've done this for the last 4 years, but prior to that, I had a human resources background and career. And so what that means is I did the training and development. I did benefits management where I created the health plans that our companies would use for our employees to enroll in. I also did our new employee orientation. So I got employees acclimated to the company and making sure that they were well-adjusted and well-informed employees. I was the face of the brand at that time, and I didn't really know what that was called, what that was like. And essentially, I was the brand ambassador for our company. I was just operating into in a benefits, new employee orientation, training facilitator role. I didn't know it was brand ambassador roles, which is why it was so natural for me to transition from HR career to being the Procter & Gamble ambassador, to owning my own company where I teach other people how to become brand ambassadors and how to speak the language of a brand, or how to have a brand and find other people who can represent you properly. And so I see a few more of you have jumped on. Hello, thank you for joining me. I'm just kind of giving you some background on who I am and why I'm in the room, and why Jennifer has trusted me to be one of her advisors of her own company, and to kind of help you navigate your way through this entire Kidpreneur anthology project that you guys are working on. I'm excited to be a part of that and to help you all with your branding and getting that established, and just clarifying some pieces of what we have going on here as a brand. So as far as I've already told you that I am a speaker, an author, a brand and social media consultant, and also beauty and lifestyle consultant. So just wanted to make clarity there. I've been featured in OWN Magazine, Essence, Ebony, Huffington Post, Sophisticate Black Hair, you name it, I've probably been in it, and it's been a dream come true. And so that's why I say I commend you all for starting so early. I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up, was kind of just there. And so now I've discovered that, and it's cool that you all are doing that so early in your careers, and that you have parents who are trusting, your expertise, really, and they're following your lead, but they're trying to give you some direction and some great instruction from Jennifer and the advisors that she's placed on board for you all. So I have a quick question that I like to pose to all of my clients anytime we're talking about building a brand from scratch. And that is, if you were candy, if your brand were candy, what candy would it be? And I know this is kind of a silly question, but I love it when I teach it to kids. If your brand was, if you were a flavor of candy, I always think of M&Ms or even Skittles. And I'll be more specific in that regard, and the sweet and sour Skittles. And I would say that my brand says sometimes my clients, they don't really get the direction in which we're going. They come in with all these plans, these aspirations of things that they would like to do. But before they speak to an expert, they struggle sometimes with getting clear in their own mind and making sure that the advice that I'm giving them is sound advice, right? So I say sometimes they're a little sour with me, but in the end, once we're done, they get that sweet taste. The Skittle kind of softens up, and those sour feelings, they dissolve, and we get into the sweet part of their success, the sweet part of their business. And so it's really good. Hey, Tamara, thank you for joining. I see you on. Hope you all can hear me okay. But I just kind of want to ask you, if you think about your brand, what does it taste like? What does it smell like? What's the experience of people? What do they get from you whenever they experience your brand? And so that's why I look at mine as a sweet and sour Skittle. And I literally can see and taste and feel and know that my clients, they get that experience from me, that sometimes it may be that rough patch, but with my guidance, they get over that hump. They get to that sweet part and they start tasting the success. So you should ask yourself, when you're creating your brand from scratch, whatever you have in mind, what does it taste like? What is your user experience like? Are they feeling it? Are they tasting it? Or is it time for you to add another ingredient, another component, to get that advisor in there, that consultant in there, someone who can guide you, better guide you than you've done with yourself? Because the reality of it is that we cannot be great at everything, right? Even as a consultant myself, I have advisors, trusted advisors that I have for marketing, even some for my website design, my branding. Even as a brand consultant, I still have brand advisors. And so even when you think that you're strong, or you know that you're confident in an area and that this is your niche and this is your passion, your purpose, you still have to surround yourself with some qualified folks, some experts who are willing to share their expertise, so that your clients too can get to that sweet spot and get over the hump, whatever it is, whether that's you providing a counseling service or a lemonade stand or a hair product or t-shirt lines, whatever your passion is, whatever your business is and what you like to establish in life, you've got to think about your flavor, right? And what you bring to the table, what's uniquely yours. And so that's the reason why I posed the question, if you were some candy, what would it be? What type of candy would you be? So I want you to think about that. Next, we're going to talk about the difference in a brand and branding. So a lot of times people get this confused, and we want to just have this be a question that you ponder on. What is a brand? Do you know what that is? Are you clear on what that is? Because a lot of people think they know, but they're not really clear on it. They're uncertain. They leave this blank space there where sometimes it just does not come through the way that it should. And so for me, I'll just explain to you by definition, a brand is the image, the idea of a particular product or service that your audience connects with by way of your name, your logo, your tagline, your slogan, your overall imagery. It's the entire package. That is your brand. Again, the idea, the image of a particular product or service that your audience, those who you've targeted with intention, connects with you by what they see, what they touch, what they feel. That's going back to that piece of candy and what flavor you are and what you bring to the table that makes people gravitate towards you and your business, your product or service. That's a brand. Now, branding is, let's be clear here, when you have that brand, that idea or that concept, it's taking that concept, that image, and marketing it, making it viral, making it the household name. So your Gains, your P&G products, right? So P&G said, I want Crest, I want CoverGirl, I want Pantene, I want Tide, I want Gain, I want Charmin to be household names. I want that brand recognition. That is branding. That means that someone took the time to market the product or service correctly. They took the time to figure out what the pain point of their people really was. And they said, you know what, we're going to make this a viral sensation. We want this product, we want this personal brand to be well known, or what some people refer to as famous, right? They want you to be able to look at a logo like your Chick-fil-A logo or your Coca-Cola logos, McDonald's, those golden arches. That's brand recognition because they took the time to truly brand, market rather their product, their service. So they knew who their target audience was. And sorry, parents, it's not you. It is the kiddos. Kids, you are the reason why McDonald's goes around, right? So you have to think about that. Parents, your children, we want to make them happy. I'm a mom myself, so you want to make your children happy. So you think about, little Susie wants, or little Johnny wants to go to McDonald's today. That's his favorite place to go. So McDonald's was very, very intentional on who they were building their brand around. And they took that marketing to create branding that gravitated towards children who could persuade the adults to actually go to McDonald's. So that may help you with the difference between brand and branding, right? So we want to make sure that that concept, that image, that your audience relates to your product or service unique to you. It's your stamp of distinction is what I like to refer to it as. Does anyone have questions so far? We're 15 minutes in. I've explained to you kind of the basics of brand and branding, the reason why you should think about your flavor as a brand, as a product or service. Anyone have questions, you can send it over in the comment section. I'll be sure to see it. Let me just look and just check for just a moment. Okay, so we're good there. So we've covered what brands and what branding is. We've talked briefly about the CCCI method, which is clarity, connection, curb appeal, and your it factor. So that I comes from being the it factor. So CCCI is something very simple. It's standard to the branding and marketing world. And that is clarity, connection, curb appeal, your it factor. Those are things that I teach my clients all the time, is to make sure that they have those 4 things in their branding. And when you have those, you will come with the consistency. You'll be clear on what it is that you bring to the table as far as a brand, whether you're a personal brand, such as a public figure, someone who's famous like your Beyoncé's, your Oprah, your Tyler Perry's of the world, your Ellen DeGeneres, whatever the case may be, whomever you admire, they are personal brands. They're public figures. So whether you're a personal brand or you are a product or a service that you provide to your clients, you want to make sure that you're giving them that clarity, the connection, the curb appeal, and the it factor at all times. So that is your responsibility. And so that method will never steer you wrong. So let's talk for a moment about clarity. Clarity is where you need to, this is the exercise I like doing, and I love for the kids to do it. And so I want you to list 3 ways you're clear on what you offer and why consumers or your audience chooses you. So if you offer lollipops and they happen to have a gummy bear in the middle of them, why would I choose yours over the ones that have caramel on the outside that I can get to it immediately and then I get to the apple part later? So you've got to think about that. List 3 ways that you're clear on your offerings, what you know you bring to the table. And it may be, you may say, look, I feel like I bring something to the table that another brand does. And that's fine, because there's more than one way to skin a cat, as my grandmother would say. You can always find other ways to be creative, things that are unique to you. That's the reason why you have purpose and passion. You want to make sure that you do things your way. You put your own little spin on it, right? So let's talk about the 3 ways that you know you're clear with what you bring to the table, what you offer, what's unique to you that no one else in this world can do like you can, right? So there's a ton of branding and social media consultants. They're everywhere. We're everywhere. And so I know what's unique to me is that I bring the candor to the table, but I also can look at these large concepts, sometimes that are overwhelming to some of my clients. I take those concepts and I break them down to bite-sized pieces, ones that are realistic. They bring clarity to the table for my clients, and they don't feel so overwhelmed. I let them know it's a slow process. It's one in which that we are going to take our time in achieving the overall goal. I'm able to bring out, if you tell me that, my favorite color is red, and I've been thinking about designing this bottle around it. Well, what is the bottle going to do? Who is it going to provide a service for? Are they really going to like it? Those are the questions I'm going to ask you. And then once you say yes, yes, and yes, I say, well, is there another way to present this to them? And did you think about this type of service for them? So there's so many things that I know that I bring to the table as a social media and a brand consultant that perhaps some of my industry friends don't. And there's things that they do that I don't do. But I know that what's unique to me is the bite-sized pieces, bringing that clarity and the comfort to my clients while being candid with them. I'm not at all the consultant that you come to and you want that whole, motherly tone to you. I don't do that. I'm very clear on that. It's, if you have a goal in mind and you know that you want it, well, let's see how we can get you there. And it may not be easy. It's going to be challenging. Yes, you're going to make mistakes. Those are the things that I'm going to advise you of, because I can only be honest with you and transparent with you to get you where you want to be. So I think that that's one of the things that I love doing. So I see something over here from Jasmine. You have a question. So for clarity, okay, you don't have a question. You just wanted to tell me. Your clarity, designing homes, refurbishing and redesigning clients' furniture, and products, houseware. So are you an interior designer, Jasmine? Is that what you do? Because I know you're refurbishing, you're redesigning. So if I came to you, why would I want you? Why would I want to hire you over another interior designer that I may know? What's unique to your brand? That's what I would ask you. That's the question I would pose to you and ask you to ask yourself, and write it down so that you never forget that as you're creating products. The whole idea behind the CCCI method is to write things down so that you never deviate from that to the degree where you're not true to yourself and you lose your brand's message. That's the whole ideal behind it. So that's clarity, writing the 3 things down that makes you clear in your offerings. Next, let's talk about connection. Connection. We want you to list 5 influencers or brands that you need to connect with, and then say why. Don't just say, oh, I want to connect with, Facebook. Why do you want to connect with Facebook? What do they have to offer you that you can leverage your skill set? Because when you reach out and you build these brands and you establish these relationships, you don't want to just go and say, well, what's in it for me? You want to make sure that you're clear on what you bring too, right? So yes, you want some extra help. Yes, you would like some access to maybe people or funds that they may have in a brand, but what do you bring to them to say yes to you? That's what you have to think about. So I want you to list 5 influencers or brands. So either personal brand, that's what I mean by influencers. So your YouTubers, your public figures, I want you to list those out, or you may list brands or a combination of the two. But I want you to be clear on who you need to connect with to take your business, your brand to the next level, because that's what this is about. How do I continue to climb in my brand while I'm creating it? And one I will tell you is relationship, relationship, relationship. If you don't have that, if you're not open to having those relationships and nurturing them, because it's not just saying, I want to connect with you, it's wanting the same thing in return, wanting someone to connect with you as well. So you need to list 5 people and then say why you want to be connected with them. For me, I want to be connected with My Black is Beautiful because they were a large brand. They were, helpful in my community, something that was near and dear to my heart, which are Black women, Black girls, empowering them, showing them how to exude confidence, whether that's in corporate America or in their personal lives. And My Black is Beautiful was the perfect outlet for me to bring my skill set to them and offer something to them, but as well get the access to the other brands that they had within, under that P&G umbrella. And then I nurtured those relationships, and I ended up getting an opportunity to represent Pantene Naturals, to represent what they call male scale brands. And that was your Old Spices, your Crests, your Gillettes of the world. My fiance and I were able to do a shoot for Father's Day that included him into my world. And I got to show him what I do for a living and my brand and what it looks like and why it's so important to me. So my purpose and being intentional with My Black is Beautiful was so much larger than just right there representing that community and saying, oh, I want to just help Black women and girls. Well, how else do I want to help them? So that's why I'm telling you, look at your brand long term, but break those pieces down and say, I'm going to start with this. So my start was My Black is Beautiful, representing that campaign, that community, the African American community for women and girls. And then I was intentional in saying, you know what, my long-term goal is this. So in order to get there, I need to now partner and leverage what I've done with My Black is Beautiful to connect with Pantene Naturals. Now that I've done Pantene Naturals and represented them and been seen in different campaigns nationally, now I want to do things with men. So what better way to do that than Father's Day, introducing the person that is, close to me that I love, and then working with the male brands. So now once this contract or this relationship is met its obligations, then now I can go and say, I've done this before. Let me in the door. So that's why I tell you all to be very intentional about what you do, what you say, who you connect with, who you don't connect with, because there's value in that too by saying no to some opportunities. Everything is not meant for you. And so when you're talking about brand and connection and clarity, all of that factors in there. So when you talk about connection, list your 5 people and your why. Next, let's talk curb appeal. Does your brand have the landscaping of excellence, or is it time you cleaned house? What I mean by that is when you walk up to a home, say you're going to buy a house, or you've went to look at houses or apartments or this new toy with your parents, anything you know that you really, really want, you've desired, it's your dream. So say that was to become a toy maker, but you want to go do some market research. So you're going to go to Toys R Us, and while you're there, you see toys. And they're displayed because there's this large teddy bear there. He's in the middle. He's got this big red bow tie. It's got curb appeal in that store to draw you in and make you want to buy. Now, if the teddy bear was tossed over on the ground and he was dirty and the toys were everywhere, the clearance markings was everywhere, it was junky, you wouldn't want to shop. You wouldn't have the same desire and feel for wanting to go and buy from that company, because They've put you in a space to have a bad taste in your mouth. There is no curb appeal. You walked up to it and it took away everything, all your anxiousness, all of your excitement, because it was disorganized. So that's what I mean by curb appeal. Do you have the landscaping of an excellent, a well-oiled machine? Are you professional? Even though you're a kid, do you have the right people in place? Is your mom and dad helping you? Is there an uncle or an aunt that's helping you? Is there a family member? Is there a friend? Is there a mentor someone that you know that you would love to be a part of, just having them in your brand, right? So you have to think about that. Who is it that you're placing around you and why? Why? What do you bring to the table where people say yes to you? That's part of your landscaping. Is your website together? Is your Facebook business page together? Do you have one? Can I find you online? Are you missing? Do you have business cards? Are you writing notes to people? That's part of your business and brand curb appeal. If you don't have those things, or if they are out of order, it's time for you to clean that up. It's called cleaning house. So that's part of your curb appeal. Let's talk lastly about the CCI method, and that is your it factor. What makes you you? What makes you shine? What makes you absolutely rock? What makes people say, you know what? He is it. She is it. And a lot of the times they talk about the it factor in Hollywood, in media, in entertainment. This person, they'll tell you, we had thousands of people audition for this role, but I was able to pick out this person. This one little girl just outshined everybody else. How many of you have heard that? On several occasions, we hear that, how, one person out of thousands, the scouts will say that person just outshined them. She stuck out to me, whether that's you wore the neon outfit on stage and you outdanced someone, or your smiles were very genuine, you connected with your judges in front of you, whatever the case may be. I liked a show called So You Think You Can Dance. And I loved it when they did the kids edition, because there were so many kids who gave face, quote unquote. And that was, they had the connection, they had the personality to where the judges remembered them. So what makes your brand, what makes your product, what makes your service memorable? So I want you, as far as your it factor is concerned, to think about 3 ways you show up visually and socially. Do your clients get your unique it factor? So when you see it, when they see it, do they believe it? Have you put it out there to where what you wanted, the message you wanted to convey, is coming across properly? And is it making people gravitate toward you? That is what I talk about as far as your it factor. That's what I mean. Make sure that you have your curb appeal together. And then your it factor is you visually and socially. Are you connecting with people online? Are you going on there and saying good morning to them on Twitter? Are you talking to them on Facebook? You have to think about those things, because all of them weigh very heavily on your brand, whether that's a personal or professional brand. And so that's good to know when you're talking about development and further developing who you are and what you represent. Next would be your brand goals. Establishing brand recognition, creating a good reputation, establishing brand standards, generating revenue. That should be your brand goals. 1, establish brand recognition. 2, create a good reputation, and we'll talk about how you do that. 3, establish brand standards. And 4, generate the revenue. Because revenue does not come if you do not have the recognition of your brand, you don't have a great reputation, professionalism, if you're not nice to people, if you don't remember to call people by their name, to be genuine to people who buy from you, to give them samples every once in a while, to find some ambassadors to say, oh, I love this product. If you don't have those things, if you haven't established any type of standards to measure your success, then the revenue does not come. So don't think about money first. Think about what you're gifting to the universe, what you're gifting to your consumer, what you're gifting to your audience, because that will weigh very heavily on what comes next, right? As far as your earnings are concerned. So let's talk about the brand goals one by one. Establishing brand recognition. Think about your who, your how, and your why. That's how you're going to establish recognition. Your who, your how, your why. Who do I need to connect with to make my brand grow? And this is where your brand ambassadors come into play. How do I connect with those people to where they want to represent my brand? So for instance, My Black is Beautiful, they start establishing this brand, they start establishing this diversity initiative, and they said, we're going to gift Black women and girls this. We're going to give them experience. And then we're going to bring in some women who are everyday women and who can show the other women in our community how this works. But the how of how they did that was through a contest. They tweeted it out, and they announced that they were looking for national ambassadors. They were going to take 6 people from around the world to have them represent My Black is Beautiful. That was their how. So they knew the who was 6 women. The how they were going to discover that and get the recognition for the community would be through the contest. And that was through social engagement. They had us do Facebook, YouTube videos. The crowd, the audience, everyone on social voted for us on YouTube. We did a Facebook vote as well. We did essays, we did questions, we did live interviews. So there were so many different mediums in their how, and connecting with us and finding the 6 women who would represent My Black is Beautiful. The why was they wanted to grow their community. They wanted to grow the awareness. They wanted to grow self-confidence in African-American women and girls and their beauty and what that looks like. So they established their brand recognition. They knew they knew the who, the how, the why. So that's what you need to do in your own brand, is know who, how, and why. So I hope you're taking notes on that. Next, you're going to create a good reputation. And you ask, well, Ebony, how do I do that? Building your reputation starts day one, before the launch. This is when you're even conceptualizing something. When you say, you know what, I'm passionate about this. I think this is my purpose. Let me pray about it. Let me think about it, ponder on it for just a bit. And once I've established that, then I'm going to create my reputation around that. So this starts day one. This is not something you need to wait on. This is not something that comes after, oh, I figured out what I want to be, who I want to be. Your reputation, nowadays it used to be the professional and personal dealings were separate, but they're not. So the way you show up in school, the way that you show up in class, the way that you treat your teachers and your friends, and the way you treat your parents, all of that spills over into your professional life too. It spills over into who you are as a brand as well. So you have to think about that the two are married. They don't just go together, they're married. And there's no divorcing it. There's no separation, because gone are the days where you say, well, this is my personal life, and who I was, my character in my personal life should not negate who I am professionally. So I want you to think of the two as one and the same, and creating your reputation starts day one. So think about that now. Don't wait till later and try to clean it up later. If you've made mistakes, which all of us have, it's not impossible to clean up. But when you are intentional about thinking about who you are, what you want out of life, you start day one. And now that you all are, that you want to be entrepreneurs, or you already are, you've established that and you're just working on branding, it's very good rule of thumb to begin to think about the way you want to come across on social media. If you're angry for a little bit at mom and dad, or if you're angry at the kiddos, mom and dad, you've got to step away from social media and not show up in an angry manner. You want to be consistent all the time with your brand. So whatever you're establishing as your brand message, who you want to be, who you want your user to experience, you've got to keep that at the forefront, even when those emotions run high. My rule is the 5-second rule. If in 5 seconds you're still feeling the same way you were when you typed that message, delete, 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 and log off. So if you're feeling down, you're feeling sad, or you're angry at someone, social media is not the time to come on and express that. Wait till you calm down and then go on and make a post, or go on and talk to your audience, because they will not forget the negativity that you put in the atmosphere. And putting it in the cyberspace is sometimes worse than you saying it and being face to face with someone, because it never, ever, ever, ever goes away. So you can think that you deleted something. And when I tell you delete, 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 sometimes I'll type something out and I'll just erase it. I won't submit it, but I'll erase it. And that just kind of makes me feel a little bit better. But be careful with that too, because you may hit enter and don't want to. And with cyberspace, it doesn't go away. It may be deleted, but it's still there. So just keep that in mind, okay? So after you create a good reputation from day one, you want to establish brand standards. And what I mean by this is your guidelines you and your staff will use to measure your success. Meeting it or exceeding it, whatever that looks like for you. Whether you say this is my first year's goals, or for me, I tell my clients break it up into quarters and then take those quarters, which is 3 months at a time, take those up and break them up into 14-day increments so that you're not overwhelming yourself. Take it one day at a time, even hour by hour. You want to have goals and you want to set those goals, but you never want to fight yourself to the finish line. You don't want to sit there and have to beat yourself to the finish line. You want to make sure that you are consistent and focused. So establish those standards. And some of you may be saying, well, I haven't yet hired anybody. But even if you have people helping you. So I'll give you an example. I host a single moms brunch every single year in October. And this is my third one coming up. And I knew from the first year that I did it, I needed to establish some guidelines, the way that I wanted my vision to come to life. And so I have volunteers that work with me. The entire project is 100% donations at this point. And I have guidelines that I use, and my staff knows, hey, I want the women to feel this when they walk in this room. I want the atmosphere to be this when they experience this, because I want it to be an event, a project that they don't forget. I want it to be a memorable occasion for them where people just loved on them. I want them to be suffocated in love. And so I describe the feeling, and I ask them, if you were invited somewhere, how do you want to feel when you leave there? How do you want to feel when you get there? Because as single moms, we are, by society standards, and our children are doomed for failure. We're not supposed to make it, right? So I don't want the women to feel that way when they walk in the room. So even though I'm using volunteers and I'm not paying my staff, I still want to educate them on what I expect, what my expectations are. So even if you are running your business and you don't yet have paid employees, you've got to think about the future, that far goal of what it really looks like, what you want people to feel and experience, and you can't compromise on that. How you're going to measure your success. How are you going to measure that your brand messaging is working? How are you going to measure that your target audience is, that you're in the right space? Because sometimes we choose audiences and we think it's for one person or one group of people, and it truly is for someone else. And so you have to constantly be evaluating. So that's where establishing those brand standards comes into play. You've constantly got to evaluate what's in front of you. Thank you, Alexis. All right, so after establishing the brand standards, let's talk about planning to generate revenue. No one does this to lose or not build wealth, right? Be intentional in doing so by mapping out your plan, what I call your brand GPS. And that's the goal, purpose, success. So you've got to know your goal, you've got to know your purpose, and you've got to be able to measure the success. That's how you plan to generate the revenue. So don't forget about your brand GPS. And I'll repeat that. It's goal, purpose, success. Set the goal, know your purpose, measure the success, and the revenue comes. That's how that works. It's not a magic formula. It's very simple. It's not one that's too complex. You just have to measure. You have to plan it out. You have to be intentional in succeeding. And it won't be easy. But you're not doing this to just set yourself up for failure. You know, so you have to just think about that and be intentional in succeeding. So that is what I wanted to gift you with today, to give you that information and the training and making sure that you do the basics of establishing your brand to create the revenue that you need, starting from scratch and what it looks like, which is establishing the relationships early on, nurturing those relationships, and knowing what you gift to other people. That's basic branding 101, having a brand 101. So now I'm going to open up the floor for Q&A. You can either come on live or you can type your questions in the comment section. And this is your opportunity to ask me your burning branding, your social media questions while I'm here and sounding off. Don't be afraid. There is no such thing as a dumb question. So I don't want you to ever think that. I don't want you to think that it's silly to ask me certain things. I'm very open to helping you all out and navigating this process. So I'll give you a moment to put in your comments as far as the questions that you may have. I wanted to give you about 20 minutes to do this. And if you would like to come on live, Xandra, I see you're here. If you want to come into the actual broadcast and let me know, we can talk one-on-one and you can ask me some questions about your brand specifically. Don't be shy. All right, so I have one from Alexis McCoy, and Alexis says, should we keep our brand colors and post the same? Alexis, can you clarify for me just a little bit more what you mean by that, your brand colors and post the same? Are you saying should what you post every day, maybe let's say Instagram, for instance, should all the imagery or the pictures that you place on there, should they be the same in your brand colors, consistent? Is that what you're asking? If you want to hop on live, that way we can talk, then that will work. Let's see. See if I can move this over. So I don't know if what you see on your side, but the picture that's coming up where it says it's time for Q&A, just those little flags that are coming up with the questions and the things that I'm going over. If you can see, that is a red color and then it's a light gray. Those are my brand colors. So anything that I do, even on the handout that you all have, and I'll share that with you. Let me just close this agenda section here. And I'm going to share something with you, if I can here really quickly, or maybe not. But if you go to our actual handout that you have where it's creating from scratch, those colors are my brand colors. I've got a really light gray, a darker gray, like a granite almost color, a gray stone, and then I have a red and then a melon red color. Those are my brand colors that I use on everything that I do. My logo, any of my imagery that I have to put out there to my audience, it's all going to look like that. It's all going to have one of those colors in there. Anytime that I go speaking for anything, they develop training materials for me. I'm very adamant on keeping that consistent. So if I see that it's not, I will politely ask the person, hey, can you adjust that to where it's on brand for me? And there's nothing wrong with you asking for that. And so, yes, you need to make sure that you're consistent with your brand colors. So if you're creating something where you're going to be appearing somewhere, if you're going to be speaking somewhere, if you got a new book coming out, you want your brand colors to be consistent. So you won't see Coca-Cola changing the color of their cans. They're red. And the logo is going to be white. So the only ones that they started establishing once they had the true recognition of the Coca-Cola brand was the Coke Zero. It's a black can, but the logo looks the same. So if you just think about some brands that you admire and that you know that are out there that are a little bit larger than yours right now, then you will see the consistency in which they provide. Chick-fil-A, you'll always see the C with the two little things on top that remind you of a chicken. That's what you're going to see on all their packaging. They're not deviating from that, whether that's a white polo shirt they put it on, a black one, or a jean shirt. That C with those little dots above the C and it's red will always be the same, or it's white, whatever the case may be. They're not changing from that logo. So just think about that. You know, you don't want to be inconsistent, because how will your audience ever recognize you? You know, unless you're a personal brand and your face is out there like your Beyonce, or you're, Selena Gomez, you want to make sure that people know who you are and what you bring to the table. And they say, oh, well, that's Alexis. I know who she is. So you want to make sure that that's what you're providing to your clients, that you don't confuse them. That's the reason why we say be consistent with your brand colors and your imagery that you're placing out there. So I hope that answers your question. If not, and you need further clarification, then please let me know. So Jasmine Benton has a question, and that is she's saying social media isn't her strongest suit. What is the right way to fix up your social media? When you say fix it up, Jasmine, what do you mean by that? Because sometimes it's not broken and you may overcomplicate it by thinking so because you're trying to keep up with what else is out there and what other people are doing. And that's not necessary. What I will tell you as a social media consultant, and I tell my clients that, where is your audience? What platforms are they on? And make sure you keep it simple, because sometimes you're not supposed to be on those platforms. Sometimes you just go and get the username. So for me, @BrandMeEbony, so that @ that's your username. Twitter calls it a handle. That's the proper language for it. But that I didn't use it for a long time on some of the platforms, but I went and got it because I didn't want anyone else to take it. It was prime real estate. You think about buying property, or the locker that you want, you go and pick it, you show up early to go and get it from school, whatever the case may be, because you want to hold on to it so no one else will take it from you. And so that's what I would advise you of, is to think about the platforms that you're on right now. Is it necessary for you to be there? So you've got to answer the why. Why am I here? What am I doing? Is my audience here? And if the answer is yes, 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 then that's when you need to figure out what your plan is, your strategy is as to showing up there. And there's several tools out there to help you with social media. So you're not tweeting live, you're not getting on Facebook Live, you are actually doing this. It's called automation. Okay, so that is when you bring in the Hootsuites of the world, or you bring in the Buffers of the world. And these are free services, but they do have those upgrades that you can do in order to do more, to bring out all the bells and whistles. And I will tell you, they are appropriately priced to do so. But I'll say that you don't need to be on every social media platform, and you've got to know where your audience is, what they're doing, and why you should be there too. If you are on Snapchat and your audience is more of a traditional audience, they're not going to Snapchat, because even there's some millennials, younger generations, that can't figure it out. They don't understand that it just disappears in 24 hours. So your audience is not going to be there. You probably need to stick to the more traditional platform. And I use traditional very loosely, because social media is not in any way traditional, but it's one of the less cumbersome platforms is to use Facebook. So think about that versus saying this is where everybody else is, so I want to be there too. You've got to make sure that you are very intentional in being in the places and putting out the content that is relevant to your audience. If you are a personal brand, you want to share a mixture of business and professional things that you've got on there, right? So you want to make sure that, so for instance, for me, I am very intentional on sharing just a little bit about my family and not so much everything, because I also want people to know I do business. I have offerings, I do trainings, I do so many things. So I won't saturate my personal pages with that, but I will share some of it, and I'll guide them to where they can learn more if they don't want to hear all of it. So you've got to figure out the strategy. And I know for my audience, sometimes they feel like hearing about the professional side. Sometimes they just want to know what I ate for dinner, or what I had for lunch, or what I cooked that day, because my audience knows that I cook, because I post pictures and I show them how to do certain recipes. I post them and what the greatest products they can go and get. We talk about those things with my audience. And so just contemplate on where your audience is, where you want your brand to show up, what your messaging is, be consistent in that. Everything as little as a hashtag is important to you when you're talking about your brand showing up online. You need to know how people can search for you and find you very easily. The hashtag that I use is #BrandMeEbony. Even if I'm at an event and they say, oh, I want you to use hashtag ABCD, I'll use that out of respect for that event that I'm covering, or that I'm speaking at, or training at. But I always put mine in there because my audience is looking for me. and I don't want to cheat them out of my whereabouts when I say that I'm a public figure and that's what I signed up for, right? So that's what I will tell you as far as fixing up your social media is to be intentional in it. Don't just show up and tweet something just to be tweeting. Don't just get on Snapchat just to be snapping. Don't get on Pinterest when you're not a visual brand. Think about those things. Do I have any other questions? We've got about 10 minutes before we close, but I did want to open the floor to you all to ask me anything that you possibly could think of. Before we go, I will tell you how you can connect with me. If you ever want branding and social media to consult with me, and you want advice with your branding, social media, I do that all the time. I train teams on how to use certain platforms and just speak with speakers on what they should be looking for when they go to an event, how they should conduct themselves when they're booking themselves. So if you don't have a booking agent, some of that knowledge and information may be great for you if you're doing it on your own. I started out doing it on my own before I had people who would book me for certain things. So what I will tell you is that I love working with all age groups. I've worked with, I think the oldest person I worked with was probably about 80, and she was a ball of fire and fun. I learned much about her and from her, and she got so much from me. We actually still stay in touch, even though we're finished with her project. And the youngest that I've worked with has been about 12. So I like changing up the content and giving you all what you want, what you need, and just being intentional in our relationship. And so, like I told you before, I am one of Jennifer's trusted advisors on her brand and how things go forward with what she's doing, and how she shows up on social media. And I'm so excited and proud of her for starting this training and establishing it and making sure that you all have quality experts in front of you. And so I will tell you and encourage you to establish some great things that make sense for your brand and others. So does anyone else have any questions? All right, let's see. Social media. Okay, we have the social media question. Zandra, do you have any questions before we go? I'll look in the group to see if you all posted anything there as well. Just one moment. Okay. Everybody got their... Yes, Ellen Tamara asking if we were live. Yes, we are live. And I'll post, the link is in there. So when we wrap this up, you'll be able to go to your group and see that. Okay, so I don't see any other questions. Let me just refresh my screen there. Okay, Alexis, I like your fire. Okay, so that made sense to you. Okay, great. Perfect. Okay. All right, guys. So I just want to kind of recap before we go what we discussed today. And if you have questions, post them in the group. So today in the training, what you learned was the 4 simple steps to creating your brand from scratch, which was CCCI. And then you learned creating intentional clarity in your brand's personality and overall experience. And so we talked about all of that, and I discussed with you who I am, what my background is. And I want you to truly think about your brand being candy and the experience, your user experience that you're giving to others, and knowing what the difference between a brand and branding really is. So the brand is establishing the image and making sure that you've got the idea together, and then branding is taking that concept and marketing. So if you just keep those things separate, you'll always know what it is that you need. Okay, we've got one more question. How do you get the bar at the bottom of the live screen? Alexis, you use BeLive TV. So how I get this bar, and I guess you're referring to, so I'll just switch it. Just tell me if that's what you're referring to when I switched it, where now it says branding is. So I got that by creating an agenda, and that is the guide, a roadmap of what your presentation is. So if you create that, then it'll come up and it'll ask you if you want to hide it or show it. So for instance, I'll place your question there. That's how we do that. So it asks me if I want to hide your question or if I want to show it. So earlier, Jasmine asked us, say she admitted that social media wasn't her strong suit, and she wanted to know what's the right way to fix it up. And so that's what I was talking to her about earlier. So I just go through the comments. It says show or hide. When you asked me earlier, it says should we keep up our post? That's how I'm popping that up there now. So you create an agenda and you just flow that way. So I'm going to tell you how you can connect with me, and I'll place that up there. It takes a little planning, up front, so you can guide your audience through. So now I'm going to tell you how to connect with me. And how you connect with me is by email. So you can email, and if you want to schedule any consults, my consults have a day rate to them as well. So if you email me, we'll go ahead and get that information to you. But my email is brandmeglobal@gmail.com. So I'm adding that as an agenda item that I can discuss with you. And if I wanted to even put notes under there, talking points for myself, Alexis, what you're going to do is add the agenda item, and in the description, you place your talking points. The audience does not see that. So that's a little education on how to use BeLive TV. I love it. Great platform. You're able to schedule and tell people how to find you and all of that jazz. It's a really cool tool. But let me go back and make sure we don't have anything else. Alexis, was that all your questions on the BeLive? Do you have any branding questions? So what I'm going to ask you, Alexis, is to tell me in 3 to 5 sentences what it is that you do. What is your brand about? Because that's your elevator speech. You should be able to tell me that in 3 to 5 sentences, actually less. So elevator with me, and I asked you what you did for a living, what your business was all about. What is your elevator speech? Let's say you going from the first floor to the 12th floor. Tell me who you are in 2 to 3 seconds. Because for me, if you asked me, I would tell you, hi, my name is Ebony Combs, and I help passionate entrepreneurs and corporate take their concepts from idea to fruition. Or I would tell you, I am the bridge, the connection between social media influencers and brands. So in 2 to 3 seconds, I'm telling you, I essentially help influencers connect with brands, being that bridge. I also told you that I take your concept to fruition, meaning I can help you with that ideal, brainstorming phase and take it over here to where it's true. And it's actually an existing product. So I told you that from the first floor to the 12th floor. So think about your elevator speech. And yes, Alexis, I do have a website, so I'll give you that as well. We are actually working on constructing another one for some other things, but it's just brandmeebony.com. That is my website. That's how you can find me. That's my website, brandmeebony.com. And if you want to connect with me on social, you'll need to go to Brand Me Ebony. And that's going to be on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook. I'm Ebony Combs. I also have a LinkedIn, all of that jazz. So we're in a call center that hires veteran college students and stay-at-home parents for companies like Disney and Comcast. Also flexible schedules for my employees while getting great service for those companies. Alexis, I would challenge you to take that and break it down even more. So you said you run a call center that hires veterans, college students, and stay-at-home parents for companies like Disney and Comcast. So what you could say is, I am the liaison for companies that hire veteran college students and stay-at-home moms or parents. I wouldn't say you run a call center. You can say that you're a broker. You broker positions, work at home positions for veterans college students. Do you get it? So that's what I would say. So you could say I'm a broker. I broker deals and I broker work at home positions for veterans, college students, and stay at home parents. And then that's going to tell me, say, oh, you broker deals for work at home. And for those people, well, what type of positions are open, or what type of companies do you work for? That's going to ignite the conversation. So that elevator speech is only to ignite your conversation. And so you want to keep it short and sweet, because you only got from the first floor to the 12th floor, and sometimes not even that. So in 2 to 3 seconds, you should be able to tell me that you're a broker for work at home positions for veterans, college students, and stay at home parents. That simple. Okay, guys, it's actually 7:01, so we're a little bit over our time. If you want to connect with me, please go to brandmeebony.com. You can schedule your consult there and connect with me further. My email is brandmeglobal@gmail.com as well. And it was fun training with you today. Have a great time. Best wishes in your future endeavors. I look forward to working with you even further. Have a great evening.